Claire looked at herself in the mirror once more. Her previously bruised face was now moisturized and hidden with a bland bit of makeup. She never really liked makeup. Not it was bad or anything, it just wasn't her style, but she realized that this was a good opportunity to make as any use. Still looking at her reflection, her hand slowly moved towards her neck, a place where it's once marked by a bulging, pulsating veins. A sigh escaped her lips, marked by a light lipstick. Her blue eyes fell to her red shirt that showed off her shoulders, a gift from Chris. With the shirt, a pair of dark jeans, and a pair of sandals. She wore gold earrings in her ears and a bracelet on her wrist, accessories that once had belonged to her mother. She felt abnormal. On the outside, a beautiful young woman, accompanied by a tall, charming brother and a cute, gentle little girl. Inside, she felt that she was not herself. Raccoon had marked her, and she had brought something strange into her home. And it wasn't just the nightmares or the feeling of being in constant danger, but the fact that she could see a spider devouring a fly on her neighbor's roof, though she closed the window of the next corridor, as if it was right in front of her. She would hear Chris whispering in Sherry's ear, what she did as a child. Two of them were in the downstairs kitchen, but they seemed to be right next to her. Claire didn't know how to control it. She didn't say anything to Chris. What would she say? The virus that almost killed her gave up supervision and hearing? She sighed, being able to hear the giggles Sherry gave. Chris was good to her. He had cared for Sherry the same way he cared for her when they had lost their parents. Could it be that suffering something similar and had never told her? Could it be that she felt no longer herself either? Claire shook her head. That was the movie night. A night to go to the movies together with a sense of normalcy, at least for a while. Claire is taking forever, she heard Sherry say, followed by Chris's grunt of agreement. She bit her tongue. Many people would think it was wonderful. However, that was so inconvenient. Loud noises scared her, and quiet noises annoyed her. It didn't seem like she got any good out of it. Leaving the bathroom after turning off the light, she went downstairs purposely, making the noise so the two of them would realize that she was coming. She could hear them getting up. "Finally, Claire," Sherry said with a small smile. "Or should I say Claire Bear?" She said, with a bastard smile on her lips. Claire opened her mouth, pretending to be surprised that she knew who it was, but then she looked over to Chris, looking at him with a hard expression. "What? You were taking too long and she asked me to tell her a story," he said, and Claire rolled her eyes and walked out of the front door. "Why precisely that story, though?" she asked, after opening the door and waiting for the two of them. "Because it's just one of the best," Chris replied, laughing lightly as he received a slap on the shoulder. Claire closed and locked the door. She walked down the small stairs and walked to the chair, sitting in front of the seat. "There's still time to change the movie," Chris said, looking at Sherry in the rearview mirror. "Nope, you'll see that Rambo is better than Terminator. I don't know why you don't like it. You and Rambo are both soldiers," Sherry said. "But unlike Rambo, I don't follow orders like a good puppy dog. Terminator knows his orders, but he sees that flaw, and that is the world acts on it. Even though he's a machine, he acts on his own choices. That's why," Chris retorted. "That's an excuse. Admit it," Sherry continued. Claire didn't even pay attention to what the two were discussing. Her eyes were now closed and her mind was trying not to think about the all-unurban noise. On one hand, she had liked it, all because of the reassurance that she was giving civilization, but again, not in a dead city. On the other hand, it was almost maddening. All of that different noise, all those voices passing by outside the car. She couldn't help but to keep her eyes open. She still didn't get used to the supervision, and had spent speed the car that was making her dizzy. She didn't even know how it worked. There were times where everything went back to normal, and when those noises were no longer a nuisance. But then it would all go back to being that whirlwind of things down thrown at her, all at once. It made her feel hurt. Her world will spin. She felt like she was going to fall over at any moment, and each different sound wave hit her brain like a bag of bricks that... "Claire!" Chris's voice startled her, and she opened her eyes in the spur of the moment, staring at him wide-eyed. The noise was gone. Everything seemed normal. and her vision was no longer as super as before. "What?" she asked, dumbfounded. "Is everything okay? I've been calling you for a while. Are you tired?" Chris asked in the same concern. Even Sherry was looking at her with worried eyes. "Oh, no. I was just stuck in thought. It's Jane's birthday in a few days, and I was just wondering if I should go." Claire came up with an excuse, one that didn't seem to convince Chris, but which to her happiness he pretended to believe. "I think it would do you good to spend time with your friends, as much as I don't like most of them. Jane is a good girl," he said, looking for a place in the park. "Well, we'll see," she said, almost in a whisper. Chris listened, but chose not to say anything. It was too hard to deal with something like that. They got out of the car and walked through the small mall until they reached the movie theater. Chris bought the tickets and popcorn after Sherry insisted a little. Claire was strangely quiet for the whole time, still not very used to seeing all those people. Very different from Sherry, who seemed very distracted and excited to be in a place that she never had been, and especially since many girls gathered like that. Sometimes she envied the little girl. They sat down, and the movie started. So far so good, and Claire tried to focus her attention to the story. She admitted that she was a little suspicious of the movie, which was Chris's fault, but it wasn't as bad as it seemed before. She never really watched the whole movie, and she only learned about small parts of it, and of course the iconic machine gun near the end. The story of the film was very engaging. A single American, regarded as one of the best soldiers, having no mission to rescue the prisoner of the War of Vietnam. Very patriotic. The action scenes were very good, and she found herself entertained by the film, not just because of the movie itself, but just because at certain moments Rambo acted in a similar way to her brother. She could imagine Chris threatening one of his superiors if he didn't like any orders or was left behind. Hell, he would probably do that for less. Everything was going well, and even forgot about the problems surrounding her mind. That is, until halfway through the movie. Her vision became a little blurry. The noise around her became muffled for a few moments. She felt a little dizzy until the noise of the gunshots hit her head. A sudden flash of the screen almost blinding her. Claire immediately closed her eyes and put her hands over her ears, hearing the buzzing sound next to the gunfire that seemed to be taking place inside her head. With each bullet, a flash of the Licker's claw attack. With each scream, an echoed a heavy stride of Tyrant. With each explosion, the roar of William Birkin echoed. With each kill, Leon appeared dead in her mind. Chris beside her realized this, and she couldn't process it, even when he asked if she was all right. She didn't exactly know how. She just stood up and walked away, letting her body walk without a specific direction. Chris then looked at her worriedly, and after telling Sherry that they were going to the bathroom, she stood up and followed her. Claire quickly and briskly walked out of the mall, and Chris had to run to catch up to her. He decided to stay a few steps behind her without saying anything, waiting for her to recover, as he realized that she was hyperventilating. A panic attack. Claire leaned over in the car, trying to control her breathing, and trying to ignore that feeling that her throat was closing up. Chris had leaned in a few steps beside her, and waited patiently until she calmed down. When she finally calmed down, the two of them were silent for a little while longer, and Claire for not knowing exactly what to say, and Chris for wanting her to say something. But soon he sighed, and he saw that she wouldn't say anything. "Raccoon again?" he asked, without turning to Claire. Like him, she sighed. "In a way. You're still not going to tell me anything?" he asked. Claire then smothered a look of her hair, and she focused on the floor. "It's more complicated than it looks, Chris. You need to face it, whatever you want to or not. You won't get better otherwise." She looked at him, and there was a look that Chris hated to see. Wounded, lost, tired eyes. If he could do anything to change it, he would. They were silent again, until this time Claire is the one who breaks the silence. "I said that Sherry and I were infected, right?" she asked. Chris nodded, but waiting for her to continue. "But I never exactly said how it happened, nor I found her," she sighed, bringing her hand up to his neck again. Me and Leon under the police station. We were trying to find a way out of town. That's when we went and ran into Sherry. She was panting, scared, running from something. She paused and crossed her arms, leaning back on the car. That's when this thing came down from the ceiling. It was in effect a man. His arm was huge, with a huge eye on his shoulder, and it wasn't until we fought that thing that we found out it was Sherry's father. Chris sketched a slightless reaction on the outside, but Claire could see it in his eyes: surprise, disbelief, concern, and anger. A one hothead, always a hothead. Anyway, this thing managed to grab Sherry and me. We were unconscious for a while. Leon fought the thing. That's when we got infected. It was chasing Sherry so we could breed. She shook her head, not being able to maintain eye contact with Chris for long. Some things happened. We found there was a chance of the vaccine in the lab under the city. Sherry and I, we could barely move. Leon had to fight Birkin again in the sewer, and only this time alone, against two who knows other things are in that place, and he had to carry us in his arms all the way to the lab. She forced herself to look at him, maintaining eye contact as best she could. I don't know what happened while Sherry and I were unconscious. I only know as we were looked up, we were healed. Leon was incredibly injured but alive. The lab was bad as any other place, and there were still several infected. And William Birkin was still stalking us. It only made times bigger, a real monster. She shook her head. Look, Chris, you may think I expect a lot from this guy, but no matter what you say, I refuse to believe that someone who risked such and went through such unimaginable things to cure us would be a bad person. I refuse to believe that he just got tired of us and abandoned us. What he did, she lowered her eyes, took in a breath, feeling her throat close again, and the urge to cry come out of her eyes. Tell me, is it so bad that I wish he was here with us? With me? She said, turning to him. She looked in deep into his eyes, and Chris in turn. He looked at Claire's red, suffering eyes. He couldn't really answer. He admitted that he was on the back of the foot about this guy, and was just an asshole like all the others. But now he was really believed in his sister. Claire swallowed some saliva, trying not to get an answer from her brother, and walked away. He didn't seem to answer anything. Come on, I hate leaving Sherry alone, she said. Without looking at him once more, she walked back towards the mall.